Hello and welcome to the Alcohol-Free Lifestyle Podcast. I'm Sarah, one of the coaches in the program, and today I have the pleasure of speaking to Rebekah, who is or has just graduated the Project 90 program. So welcome, Rebekah. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Sarah. How are you this morning? Good to be here.
Yes, I'm really well, and I'm really excited to speak with you because I know that this program's made a significant difference in your life. And I really appreciate you sharing your story because many of our listeners will have been in a similar position or still are in a similar position to the one you were in before you went through this 90-day process. So with that in mind, would you be willing to just do a bit of an introduction? Who are you? What do you do?
Absolutely. Thanks, Sarah. So as you said, my name's Rebekah, or Beck as I like to be called. I am nearly 45, originally born in New Zealand, but have been living in Sydney, Australia now for, more than 20 years. So it's definitely a place I call home. For most of my career, I've been in financial services, working as an HR manager, so quite a highly stressful position, but also helping in that position, coaching people. I am a mother of two and live near the beaches in Sydney. So that kind of sums up who I am.
Fantastic. And how old are your children, Rebekah?
So I have a 12-year-old boy called Noah, and he's just started high school this year, and a 10-year-old who is in year 5, Ivy.
Oh, gorgeous. One of each.
Yeah, and they're adorable. I love them very, very much.
Oh, I'm sure. I can see as you're talking about them, your face is lighting up. And so, Rebekah, tell us what life was like for you before you went through this 90-day program. What was your relationship like with alcohol?
Yeah, that's a tough question, Sarah. I guess because when I get asked a question like that, it does take me back to a place of confusion, quite dark place at times. Like, by no means did I feel like I was an alcoholic, but it had become a big part of my life. I wonder whether COVID also had something to do with that. Like, I've always drunk since you could, but I definitely feel that in the last 5 years, alcohol had become more prevalent in my life. And I still find it hard to wonder why that might be, because I feel the kids were getting older, they were getting more independent. I had a great job. So whether it was just more of the stress of life in general, of juggling the at-home, the wife, the mother, the employee, all of those things. But what I found in the last 5 years is that my relationship with alcohol wasn't just 1 or 2 glasses and I could stop and moderate. It had actually become so much more than that, that where I would open a bottle and say, tonight will just be 1 glass, without a doubt would be a bottle and a half later. Now, my husband's not a big drinker, so a lot of the time that's me drinking on my own. Yeah. Me thinking that I'm having a great time. And I got to the point where I was concerned as my kids have got older, the influence that I was having on them and what they were seeing. So I guess that was one of the drivers, or my kids were the main driver, because my son used to question and ask questions about it after nights out with friends, or whether we were having people around to the house. So they were often seeing me drinking. I would have blackouts, but not to the point of, passing out, but just the waking up in the morning, not being able to remember conversations and things like that. So I feel like I'd become really reliant on it, especially in my social circle, as a way to carry and manage my stress.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. And I also very much relate because that was my experience. The question that I have is in relation to moderation, what was your experience like? Because I totally get that time where we're trying to remain in control of our drinking. And we say to ourselves, I'll just drink on the weekend. And then it will be like it's Thursday. So it's almost the weekend. And, we make these most extraordinary excuses up in our heads. But it is quite exhausting, or at least I remember it being quite exhausting. Do you remember going through that stage?
Absolutely. So I went through stages of, as you say, cutting out drinking during the week. So then thought that I was really moderating by just being able to keep it to the weekends. And I feel like I mostly did that for a sleep perspective because, I've always been an early morning riser. So I always want to get to the gym before going to work and going about my day. So I feel like I sort of managed that through the week by knowing that I wanted to have a good sleep to be able to just get through the week. So the weekends became a very binge drinking for me. But the thing is, I told myself stories that I loved the taste of it, right? And I loved how it made me feel. And so I don't know, maybe if you could stop at one, then that's not a problem. But for me, once you've had that one, your inhibitions are down, your senses are deadened to a certain point, and then nothing else seems to matter. So you end up on this vicious roller coaster ride, even though you think that you're not going to go back to where you were the weekend before. Unfortunately, as I've learned through this course, is that willpower is not enough. So as much as you go out with the best intentions, unfortunately, alcohol does control you and not the other way around.
Yeah, well said. I think that's exactly right. And there's a couple of things that you brought up there, which is firstly this sense of, having routine during the week can be really helpful, right? You've got routine, so you say to yourself, well, I'm not going to drink tonight because there's something that I need to be up for in the morning. But what happened, I think, with COVID was that everybody's routine got completely shifted and changed. And so that reasoning for not drinking the night before fell away. And I've seen it with a lot of people that when you remove their routine, the drinking starts to escalate. And this also happens a lot in retirement, when people retire and they don't have that structure and routine. So when we're to our own devices, it can be quite dangerous.
It's interesting you raise that, Sarah, because that is something that I definitely saw in my father, because the drinking would get earlier because he was bored. So it's really interesting that you raise that, actually.
Routine is crucial, I think. And the reality is that we can't always be guaranteed a routine because life throws curveballs at us. So eventually that drinking is going to escalate if we're in that phase of trying to moderate. And the other thing is I'd like to just briefly touch on the perimenopause. Because women in their late 30s through to their early 50s are going through significant changes hormonally. And I certainly noticed blackouts happening, which had never happened for me before. And the more that I learn now, I realise that that's a big part of perimenopause. Were you experiencing other symptoms that were indicating that perimenopause might be in the mix?
No, not really, but there has been a major focus for me at this time on that as well, Sarah, because I feel like I am, as you mentioned, getting towards that age. Because of the work that I was doing, I get exposure to certain things in the health and wellbeing sphere. And so through my role, I had attended recently a breakfast around menopause in the workplace and how we help our co-workers and just workers and employees generally with that. And so I feel like as much as I said my kids were a driver, actually the time of my life and where I was also part of that. And perimenopause has definitely come into that. I think I had read quite a few articles and seen how alcohol is really not helpful in managing symptoms of perimenopause. And so that was definitely one of my second whys as to why I also wanted to look at my drinking habits and really just try and remove that from my life.
Yeah, it's certainly something that I think we're becoming more and more aware of, the really detrimental impact of alcohol on women, particularly in that stage of life, on so many levels. And I certainly am very grateful that I removed alcohol. I think I was kind of just at the beginning of it. But yes, it's very important for any women listening to really pay attention to your body and listen, because if you're drinking through perimenopause, it can wreak havoc, not only with your physical health, but with your mental health as well.
Yeah, correct. And I thought I was a really anxious person. Now that I've quit alcohol, I'm not sure actually how much truth is behind that, Sarah, to be honest. But because I was highly anxious, I was really, I took everything personally as well. So, and everything just seemed, I was coming from it from a negative mindset. And now that I've had 100 days alcohol free, I can really see the impact that alcohol was having on my stress hormones and my anxiety. Here I was thinking I no longer enjoyed my job, and Mondays were horrendous for me. But a couple of months out, when we were actually really embedded in the Project 90, I really started to see and come through that anxiety phase and find that, I actually do really enjoy my job, and I am good at my job. And I was getting the negative self-belief was disappearing, and it was really amazing for me to go through that. And to be honest, most of my anxiety has disappeared. Now, for someone who's lived with that for most of their life, it has been phenomenal for me to see, because I really didn't realise how much alcohol was playing a part in that. I really, really didn't. And I do believe part of that is because we're fed, as we know, so much that alcohol is part of our life, and it's glamorous and it's celebratory and all of those things. So I pinch myself every day that I am where I am at the moment. I could not have believed that I would feel as good as what I do.
Wow. And look as good as you do as well.
Oh, thank you.
So let's talk a bit about your experience with Project 90. So I can understand, I think the listeners can understand why you decided to join a program to get support, because it is a very hard thing to do on your own. Had you ever tried to do it on your own before?
So probably about this time last year, sort of January 2022, we'd been away on a family holiday. My husband had got quite impatient with me over my drinking while we were on that holiday. We'd both had COVID while away on the holiday, so it hadn't helped. But coming back from then, I decided I was going to take a break from alcohol, and it was the first time I've really ever done that. So I put a date in my mind. So I had 6 weeks off the alcohol. And after that, I was like, I'm feeling good. I've now worked out and I have strategies and I can moderate. So, I can have one and then I can let it go. And I've really changed the way my relationship with alcohol and all of these things, right? So I had the best intentions. So I slowly would have one but over time that one became two and that two became three. And then before you know it, we're back to the same old habits that we'd had before. Obviously, I was only doing it on my own. But when I look back at it now, Sarah, what I really notice is I had not changed my mindset. In my mind, I had a date in mind, and I was getting to that date and I was going to pat myself on the back and look at me. I've gone 6 weeks without alcohol, and something I haven't done before. But having now done Project 90, I realise how much a program like this, the community of people around you that keep you accountable, all of the coaching that comes with it, and just willpower is not enough, as I said earlier, to actually have a community of like-minded people around you, and that support is, it's definitely something that you need, I feel, to really get through this. And it's a mindset shift. And I don't think for me, to speak personally, it wasn't about just getting through 90 days. As the program started and the more and more we got into it, you realise it's more than just an alcohol-free journey. It became so much more than that for me. It became a journey of self-love, self-compassion, what triggers me, what's some of the coaching calls, Sarah, that you ran around the science of addiction and what it's actually doing to our brains. And so I was like a sponge throughout the program, and I was really blown away about what I thought was just to teach me about moderating or giving up alcohol really became about finding myself again.
Yeah.
So it was pretty huge.
Wow. That's amazing. And I think the thing that is really crucial to that change that you've gone through was the commitment that you brought in, because you were dedicated, you showed up, you participated, and you really, as you say, you got in and was like a sponge. And just because I think, when we think about quit alcohol programs, traditionally We see them as miserable, and we're going to be deprived, and we're going to have to white knuckle. What would you say was different for you and motivating about Project 90 that really made the difference for you?
I think the coaches like yourself, Sarah, made a massive difference. And the content where you were made to not feel that this was your fault. You were given all of the guidance and coaching and tools to understand why, as a society, we are where we are with alcohol. But as I mentioned before, also about rediscovering who you are and what's important to you and what are your values. And, you know, I could go on and on but I think what is different is just the community of people, the content. Like you say, you're not forced to attend these coaching calls, but I think the more you can get on, and I've said this the whole way through the program, is you've paid to be here. Give it your best shot. Like, there's so much great content here and great people all around the world who've all got their own unique stories and challenges. And we're all here for the same reason. We're all here to support each other. And I think it's the support of the community. There's no judgment. And I think that is huge. We spend a lot of our life feeling judged and worried about other people's perceptions of us. And I think it's about showing up and just leaving that all at the door and saying, I'm here for me. I'm here to put myself first, which a lot of us, let's be honest, probably haven't done for a very, very long time, especially if we're mothers. So I think it was really nice to just show up for me.
Yeah. And I think you're absolutely right. You know, it's so hard for not just women, for anyone to put themselves first in our society, because we're just distracted by so many things and pulled in so many directions. But what I've seen in people that like yourself is that actually you're better for your family and your husband and your work. Once you do this piece, once you remove alcohol, you are a better version of who you are, absolutely a version. And so you have more to give, right?
100%. And the confidence, Sarah, that I have got out of this program, the confidence of saying, hey, I quite like myself. Actually, I'm a good person. I actually am quite good at my job. And you know what? It comes back to that self-love and compassion piece. And I think we are so hard on ourselves. And we're forever comparing and looking at others and why aren't we as good as them, or why can't we do that? And I really think it's, you know, as you spoke about a lot about throughout the course, is finding that inner peace again. And once you find that, it's really beautiful. It actually really is. Because the happiness and joy I feel now, I can't even describe to our listeners, because you've got to go through it to experience for yourself. But as we were told early on in the program, it will just get better and better, and every day just gets better and better. And look, as you know, Sarah, I've been throwing some curveballs throughout this program. I got redundant a few weeks ago. As I explained to the group at the time on one of the coaching calls, if this had happened to me 3-4 months ago, I would have taken it really personally. It would have been really negative. I could only imagine what I would have felt about the organisation. But I was able to just look at this as a positive and go, you know what, I'm being told something right now, and maybe I'm supposed to be doing something different. And, you know, when have I had the opportunity to be able to slow down, think about what's next, spend some more time with my children, got a new puppy dog that I absolutely adore. So really just seeing it as an opportunity and not as a challenge, even though there'll be bits of challenge in there, obviously, depending on which direction I end up going in. But it's so much more of an opportunity. And I think when things are supposed to align in this universe, they absolutely do. I'm getting very spiritual these days.
Yeah. And I think that's also something that happens when we remove alcohol, because we start to reconnect. You know, we reconnect with ourselves, we reconnect with the things that are most important in life, the simple things, our families, nature, friendships. And the wonderful thing is it's all real, whereas when we're drinking, we're trying to escape reality. And the fact is you can never escape reality.
And it's interesting. Right? Yeah, because I had an incident throughout the program where I had a bit of a disagreement with a friend. Now, in the past, I would have gone straight for the bottle, but because I wasn't able to do that, really processing the emotions in real time, being able to get clarity before reacting to things, to what I would have done in the past. And it is a work in progress, Sarah. I don't get it right every single time, and even, having disagreements with my husband, but I'm able to really stop, think about what's going on for me, feel what's going on for me, and then how do I really want to proceed mindfully, where in the past that was not in my DNA. To be able to do that, I was very reactive, very defensive. So as you say, just having that clarity to be able to go, what's actually going on here is huge. And I guess I was worried that I was spending a lot of my time in fight-flight mode. So a lot of that stress and cortisol in my body, and I was really concerned about what that was going to mean for me heading into my perimenopausal years as well. So there's been a lot of thinking that I've done over this 90 days, 100 days now, which I'm just so thankful to the program for, because I wouldn't have had that clarity to be able to do that had I still been drinking.
James Swanwick here. Just a quick interruption to share some of the relationship breakthroughs that folks have been having inside of our Project 90 Stop Drinking process. Joe Worley from Michigan says, my wife has the real Joe back. Andrus from Minnesota says, I'm a better dad. Dave Kelly from Australia says, I feel so much more connected to friends, family, and colleagues. And Angela, also from Australia, says, I'm spending more time with my kids. So if improving your relationships is your motivation, or one of your motivations for stopping drinking, and you would like some professional outside support, I invite you to go to alcoholfreelifestyle.com/project90, watch the video, read some of the words on the page, learn about our process, and if it feels like it could be for you, you're welcome to schedule a free 15-minute complimentary call with one of our coaches. All right, let's get back to the episode.
It's extraordinary. I mean, in just 100 days, that sounds like a complete turnaround, like a total 180 from somebody that's completely controlled by a substance to somebody who's now saying inner peace, clarity, new direction, purpose. If you could tell the listeners one or two things that you think made the most difference for you throughout the last 90 days.
One of them would have been your call, Sarah, or coaching call on the science of addiction. I think really understanding what's going on physiologically in our brains, the neuroscience behind the effects, whether it's alcohol, drugs, gambling, sex, whatever it might be for people, that excess dopamine to what it's doing to your pleasure centers, the anti-reward chemicals, all those sorts of things. That's driven me a lot through this program, because even if I've had cravings, which let's be honest, it still can happen, I come back to that and I think about, well, what's really going on? Where am I going to be tomorrow? Am I really going to, how am I going to be feeling tomorrow? Is it really worth it? And also one of the mottos of the program is not to think about all the things you're gaining, not what you're losing by not drinking. Those are probably two of the main things. There's been a lot throughout the program, lots of different calls. One of the ones you did on triggers, plenty on emotions, just plenty of content. But I would have to say those are the two things, just think of everything you're gaining and not losing. So whenever I'm in a social situation and it's not often that I crave a glass of wine anymore, to be honest, but if I do, that's what I come back to every single time. And it just brings me out the other side. And look, I used to really enjoy the taste of wine, don't get me wrong, right? And I reckon if I had a glass now, I probably still would enjoy it. I don't know, but it's finding alternatives for that. But also I wasn't open about doing the coaching course to begin with my friends. I was with my immediate family, and I think the reason for that was because I wanted to do this for me. I didn't want to feel judged or anything, but at the same time I was doing it solely for me. And one of the things that we spoke about in the coaching course was show and don't tell. It's not about preaching to others, but that they will begin to see the joy and happiness and just the difference in you without you needing to preach about what alcohol is doing to us or anything like that. So I think that's been huge as well.
Yeah. And I think this is the thing that attracted me actually to come and work in this program was this. We can create change when we're driven by pain. We normally do, and pain inspires us to start changing. But if we're not excited about that change, it only lasts for a short period of time. And like you were saying, you think I'll give up for a month, but that whole month you're like, on the 31st of May, I can get smashed. And so it's definitely that sense of creating the possibilities, the amazing, incredible opportunities that are on the other side of alcohol that makes this process and this journey something lasting. Because once you discover that, it's like, I want more of that.
Yeah. And I think one of the other things I'd like to say, Sarah, as well, is just the stories we tell ourselves. I told myself so many stories over the years. And so all these inner beliefs that were not necessarily true about myself, situations. So I had really, just told myself so many stories, and that was all they were, right? So being able to unfold or, dissipate that and realise that they were just stories is huge.
Yeah. And the wonderful thing is once you learn to do that one or two times, you can start to really look at everything and think you've been carrying certain beliefs your whole life and never questioning them and just going with it.
Because we go, oh, that's just the way I am. How many times do we hear people say, well, that's just the way I am?
Yeah.
And I think now, for me, that's such a cop-out, right? Because we are in charge of our own destiny and journey and where we're going. And I'm a prime example of how you can just really take a look at that. And it does take courage. It takes courage because you're going to see things and it'll take you back to places. And so it's courageous. It really is. But out the other, and, courage is a big one of my values, and even more so after doing this course, because what it's allowed me to do, I became a Pilates teacher at the end of last year as well, Sarah, and so that was another one of my whys as to why I wanted to stop drinking, because I didn't feel I would ever have the confidence to put myself up in front of a class to begin teaching while alcohol was a big part of my life. And only through the not drinking was I able to change the story and say, you know what, I'm the courageous one by standing up here in front of all these people and giving things a go. There's so many people here who would not do that. But I am courageous because I'm at the front of this room. In the past, I would have been, everyone's judging me, I'm not very good at this. So I was able to change the story and make it a really positive one that in the past I would never have been able to do.
Oh, it's extraordinary. I mean, it is just wonderful to see you looking so glowing and happy and excited. So I'm going to ask you if you could describe what you felt about alcohol and your ability to remove it or give it up 100 days ago and how you feel about that now.
Yeah. And I think what I would just say there as well is I was so concerned, which I think probably some of our listeners will be wanting to ask these type of questions there around what does this mean for my social circle? So I think back to what my relationship was prior to this. Is that what you are asking? I've sort of jumped around.
When you started, just before Project 90 began, I'm wondering what your hopes were. Like, were you thinking, I'll just get through to 90, or were you just kind of experimenting, or what was your desired outcome?
Good question. Do you know what? I don't even know if I really thought about it. No, actually, that's not true. That's not true, because obviously I was Googling, am I an alcoholic? And after big nights, what does it mean to be an alcoholic? So I believe I joined this program because I needed help to quit alcohol. Yes. So obviously I think that my intentions was to give it away. Where am I now? I do feel that I've removed it, because I'm seeing all the beautiful things and transformation, and by putting myself fully into this program, But I think I was ready. I think my mindset was ready. I've already explained the 3 whys as to why I was so ready. And I've seen some beautiful transformation come from that. And so it's about yourself fully 100% into this program. Yeah. And it is a safe space. I remember when I had my initial introductory call with James, and he said to me, you're asking all the same questions that everybody else will ask before they come into this program, like, you know, what are the other people like? Or you say it's for entrepreneurs and highly achieving individuals. Am I really one of those? You know, you don't know who the other people are who you're going to be on this course with. But if I could, you know, give comfort to anyone that is listening, everyone is just like you. Everyone is there for the same reasons. Everyone is there to support each other. And it was such a beautiful space for authenticity. You know, we saw lots of tears throughout the calls, especially in the initial stages. We saw a lot of laughter. We got an insight to people's individual lives and what was going on for them and their families and their journey with alcohol, and the reasons of why they were there. So it was amazing. And so, yeah, where I am now, I think is exactly where I wanted to be, and was hoping to be, fortunately. But one of the other things I was just going to say in there was about the social circles. That was one of the things I was extremely worried about and spoke to James about before starting the program. And to be honest, if your friends are true friends, they're not going to blink twice about it. Yes, it does make people uncomfortable to start with to a certain extent, but I've not at this point in time lost any friends as such. So I think I've been fortunate. And if it makes people uncomfortable, I think it's about saying that's their issue, that's their insecurities, not yours. So being able to realise what you can control and what you are in charge of to what is somebody else's baggage, in a sense, if I can use that word. I've really learnt to go, that's your stuff to deal with, not mine. And that is something that I never had before this program as well. So is to go, well, now what I'm actually hearing is these are your issues. I've worked through mine, and this isn't the part I play in this now, where before I would have taken a lot of things personally and harboured that and carried it. I've learned to be able to go, wrap it back up in a nice bow and hand it back to that person, which in the past I would never have done. Does that answer your question? I went off on a bit of a tangent.
No, it does. I mean, what I'm hearing is that before you came in, you felt ready, at least to do 90 days and then to see where it went. You committed, you threw yourself in, you were all in. And in that time, you experienced accountability, connection, vulnerability, new friendships, the understanding that we're all the same because we are, especially when it comes to alcohol. And you've learned to set boundaries. And I think that's something that we lose when we're drinking, is the ability to set boundaries. What you're saying is so common for people, you know, when we're drinking, because we have no boundaries, because we're not clear and we're not thinking right. We don't really know who we are, and we get meshed up in other people's dramas and all of that. It's drama, right? Alcohol is drama.
Correct. That is something I am not missing. I'm loving curling up in bed with my book, Sarah, and my herbal tea, leaving that to everybody else. And it's amazing how much lightness that gives you as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And because I used to wake up after my nights out with such anxiety. Yeah. What did I say? Who was there? You know, all of those played such a big part in. So my weekends, I was really, and you know, my kids would see that, me not really being present. And I really know what it means to be present now. We talk about being present, and you'd always be like, I actually understand when we talk about what's being present, what it actually means now. Because through the coaching on this course, and you great coaches, you've been able to explain what remunerating in the past, looking to the future, but actually focusing on what's going on right now. And these strategies are something that I'm finding I'm using on my children, and it is amazing, especially as they, you know, navigate their way through school and their school years, and it's so hard. I'm finding that a lot of what we learn on this course are transferable for me to be able to talk to my kids about.
Yeah. And so it would be fair to say that you feel it's made you a better parent as well?
100%, 100%. And that fills my heart with so much happiness and joy because, ultimately I want to be the best parent I can and the best influence I can. And I obviously think back to, and it's generational, like my own upbringing with my parents, and it's, I love them dearly, but is there things that I wish had been different? Absolutely. And so I think that's driven me a lot as well. I've taken a lot of the way I was brought up to what I don't want to bring into the way I parent. And I don't mean that in a negative way. That is, as I say, just a generational thing. And I absolutely adore my parents for what they did. But there's a lot that I reflect on and go, I don't want to be like that.
Yeah. And so, Rebekah, I want to thank you for being so candid and open in this interview. I think that it's extremely inspirational for anybody, or hoping it's inspirational for anybody that's listening that may relate to Rebekah's story. Her story is not dissimilar to my story, and we meet people every day that have very similar stories that have taken an incredibly challenging time in life and turned it into extraordinary opportunity. And on that note, Rebekah, I'd love you to share with our audience what you're now doing and what your plans are. It's so exciting.
So, as I mentioned earlier, Sarah, well, I have been made redundant in the last month, and that is not a bad thing. It has given me some space. I trained to be a mat Pilates teacher in November, and I am going to be putting that into practice in my own home studio. And I feel my calling with that is also to work with women like us, women who are heading into their perimenopausal years, who need some support around how do we navigate that with love and compassion and without judgment. So I've got a few things in my mind about where I want to go with that, and I feel a little bit of coaching attached to it as well. So it's not all clear as to what I'm going to do at the moment, but I'm definitely going to be doing something for me where I am growing, but also where I'm giving back. I feel like I've got a lot to give, and I just want other women to feel what I'm feeling and be given that opportunity as well. So watch this space, I think.
Unstoppable. So
yeah.
If someone had said to you 6 months ago, you're going to be unemployed, you're going to be made redundant, you're going to rechange, you're going to be opening a Pilates studio, you're going to be alcohol-free, what would you have said to them?
No way. I would not have believed that, Sarah, at all. No. And, as I said, something that started about getting the confidence to get up in front of people to actually teach Pilates and be alcohol-free has now become so much more than that. I could never have imagined all of the things that I'm even considering doing, because I would have my anxiety and my own inner self-doubt wouldn't have allowed me to get this far. It just wouldn't. And I even still will get up, and when I'm doing a class, I've still got that monkey on my back, right? But it's being able to be clear-minded and go, I hear you, but I know what you're doing, that I'm going to be kind to myself here and working your way through that. Where in the past, you would have grabbed the bottle and you wouldn't have worked through any of that, and you would just be on this vicious cycle. So it's being able to recognise, hey, I've actually got the ability to know this is going on and how to work through that.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool.
It is very, very cool. And you are a very, very cool lady. And you have been an absolute delight to work with over the last 90 days. We've loved having you in the program. If there's anyone listening right now that may be inspired and considering doing something like this, would you have any final words for them?
Just do it. Don't doubt it. Don't question it. If you feel that this is calling you, just do it. Because I think I still had self-doubt and I questioned it because of the cost that was related to it. But you can't put a cost on this stuff. You really can't. So if I could say anything to anyone, it would be that. Because there was a fleeting moment, and if it wasn't for something that James had said to me on that call, I probably would not be where I am today.
Yeah. So sliding.
Yeah, exactly. And let's remember how much money we spend on alcohol, right? So it's putting into perspective the money that we waste on that stuff to what you can put actually into your own self-development and self-worth. Something worth considering.
Priceless, right?
Completely.
All right, Rebekah. Well, thank you so very much for joining us. And thanks to our listeners for joining us this morning, evening, or afternoon, wherever you are in the world. The Alcohol-Free Lifestyle podcast episodes are available on Apple, iTunes, all the other places where you can get podcasts. I'm not very good at that podcast final bit. But thanks for joining us. Thanks, Rebekah. And I will hopefully see you very soon. And thanks to listeners. See you soon.
Thanks, Sarah. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Hi there, this is James Swanwick. Thank you so much for listening to the show. I would be so grateful if you would leave a review. That will help us climb the rankings and get our show exposed to so many more people who could really benefit from the content. You can do that by going into Apple Podcasts, rating the show, writing a little one-sentence summary, and posting it. That would be so amazing. Thank you. Likewise, if you would like to schedule a 15-minute exploratory call and apply for our Project 90 program, then you can do so by going to alcoholfreelifestyle.com/project90. If you'd like to get the free guide, that is the Alcohol Freedom Formula Guide, you can go to alcoholfreelifestyle.com/guide. Our YouTube channel is at alcoholfreelifestyle.com/YouTube. You can follow me on Instagram and TikTok at James Swanwick. Thank you so much for listening. We so appreciate you, and we'll catch you on the next one.